Good evening, everybody. The app I use live broadcast streams to 4 different social media channels. So I'm already seeing Paint Baby, Moose Painting on IG. Somebody let me know, Matt Kuiper, the rest. Let me know if you guys can hear me. How's the audio? The last show we did, there was no audio at the start. I had to restart the feed a bunch of times. Noah Stocker, my young apprentice, also Harpet's Painting young apprentice. The live stream we need. Nice. Somebody give me an indication. Facebook, Instagram. Give me a thumbs up. Give me a heck yeah. Can you hear me? Can you see me? I just want to make sure because this is mastering the basics. I don't want to get 45 minutes into this treatise and then blast this off into the universe with no audio or video. So I think video is going good. I'm seeing my stream here. Sounds good on Facebook. Michael Sharp, you're the man. Moose Painting, you're the last one to comment on IG. Give me a sign, IG. Give me a sign. We got Brady Hargraves. Yes. Okay. We got some thumbs up. All right. Ooh, Moose Painting with the blue check mark. We got an official influencer watching tonight, folks. One of my good friends in the industry. If you guys don't follow Moose Painting before we jump into the show here, he's doing moose methods, I believe. His classes, his ultra small, hyper focused, super high-end classes there too. Check out Moose and what he does. I've been like drooling over like the images and the videos coming out of that. And I can't wait to get up there and do one of those with him. So, all right, folks, here we go. You sick of me talking about the expo yet? Well, too bad. We got multiple days before it starts. Sunday night, I'll be flying in to Colorado to go here. Monday, there'll be an all-day board of directors meeting, which honestly takes the most work out of anything I do for the expo. The other stuff, master's classes, keynote speeches, closeout speeches, all that other stuff, it's awesome. Honestly, that board of directors meeting is it makes me nervous, right? It's all my peers, it's all my friends. Everybody's got a bigger business than me, and we got to do strategy for a 140-year-old nonprofit. I am the board chair. I have to lead it. And I put a lot of time and effort into that. So I will be there. You guys will not. There is an open portion if you want to come early and see it. But we also have some closed strategy sessions and election and things like that. So here we go, folks. Tonight, we're going to be talking about another show in the series, Mastering the Basics Production. And there's going to be a coordination ripple in there too. I modify these every year based on new knowledge, based on things we learn from the industry. This is my most popular series of shows that I do all year. I call it Mastering the Basics because I'm going to show you guys I do this. This is my steps to professionalize your business right here. Step number 1 down to step number 8. And we do one show for each of those. And at the end of those, they're like little mini master's classes. At the end of those, at the end of each show, I give you my email address and then I send you all the resources for that show. Last week's show, estimating, I sent out 100 packets of information, estimate templates, sales trackers. God, what else is in there? My contract, things like that. I just send all that stuff. I ask for some reviews, but I send all that stuff to you guys. So that's what we're following, folks. Mastering the Basics is how I went from 0 to 40 people. All the steps. It's how most businesses do this. I gathered up all the best information from my own business and the rest of the industry. I do one show per one step. I give you all the resources. We rock and roll. Absolutely love everybody watching here. Before we get into this, though, we do need to talk about the PCA Expo. It is next week, folks. I am not going to stop harping on this. This is going to be one of the most unique expos this 140-year-old organization will ever do. We're going to be at the Broadmoor, which is an ultra luxury 5-star estate. For cheaper, if you looked into the prices, a night to stay at this mountain wilderness resort, 5-star luxury estate, golf course, mountains, all this other stuff is less than a hotel room in Orlando, folks. Our operations team blew it out of the water. There's mule deer running around. There's a huge lake in the middle of this thing. There's 100 years of history. Pikes Peak races was started by the guy who created the Broadmoor. Pikes Peak is right over there. The song Cripple Creek, up on Cripple Creek. Cripple Creek is literally up the mountains from where we're going to be staying. I got to take zip lines over by it. I did falconry while I was here. I saw their chocolate factory with a chocolate spray booth. I got to see 100 years of history. They covered over a pool. George Bush Jr.'s last drink he ever took before he came sober was at the Broadmoor. They have the bottle of wine if you're into that kind of stuff. So much interesting things to do there, so much history. And of course, we're going to have 1,000 to 1,500 of the most interesting humans in our industry there. And if you like anything you see on Ask a Painter, this is basically 1,000 to 1,500 of me's there, where we talk about this stuff, the ins and outs, the job costing, the personal stuff, the headspace, the limiting beliefs, coding science, all this other stuff. It's an amazing time. So sign up for the expo, come to the expo. Honestly, we have set this up knowing our industry. Painters do a lot of things last minute. Some of the highest registration we have is in the last couple of weeks here. And honestly, we made all the preparations for people to walk right up to the door, not having registered at all, not having had a hotel room, and we will take care of you. So here's the deal, folks. Make it easy on yourself, your families, your businesses, and the PCA. Pre-register, get those plane tickets. We're only a couple days away. If you don't show up, we'll take care of you. No problem. We know how painters work. All right. Last minute stuff. Some of these things are spur of the moment, last minute sort of things, and we get you. So, all right, folks, here we go. I want questions. I want comments. I want a highly interactive show tonight. It's approaching my bedtime here in Minnesota. We got to keep the energy high. We are going on step number 3 of professionalizing your business, production. Now, before you say, listen, folks, marketing is sexy. Sales is sexy. Performance coaching, sexy. All that stuff, great. Here's the deal though, where most businesses actually make money, make happy clients, make a legacy, get stability and fun and profit and all that other stuff, keep your employees, is if your production process is there. You take a promise you made to the client and you fulfill it with a series of humans and steps and codings, and then your clients pay you and there's no callbacks. And your jobs go profitably. You can pay your people more, then they stay longer, then you have stability and freedom and all this other stuff. You can see where this is going, right? Marketing is an essential part of this. You need marketing to get you opportunities to estimate so that you can sell some, so that you have the opportunity to fulfill your process, right? Production is where we actually make money. When I look at the industry, I see a lot of people who are super gung-ho on marketing, super gung-ho on sales. Great, but it's typically not a balanced approach. You also have to couple that with super simple, super rigorous process to actually paint a human's house successfully and not leave a wake of bad reviews, bad experiences, and bad finishes in your path there. So at the end of this, I'm going to tell you about a complete renovation I did of my production process. And one of the cool things I'm going to show you is this. I'm actually going to send you a template of this. This is my dashboard. This is my single source of truth. This is where my office coordinator, my 2 project managers, my estimators, and myself look at all the data for the company. How many jobs are we in setup? How many jobs are getting produced now? How many jobs are done? And then we have a whole bunch of cool little hacks and tricks and all this other stuff. I'm going to show you how to estimate material budgets. We're going to go through our tracker. We have our schedule on here. So single source of truth. I'm going to share this entire thing with you. And you're actually looking at my queues for one of my project managers in real time as we speak. But here we go, folks. Come to the expo. I'm not going to shut up until you actually show up or this expo is done. Either one. So pick one. Mastering the basics, production, step number 3. This is Ask a Painter Live number 451. Let's dive into this, folks. All right, so here we go. Production. Action of making or manufacturing something from components or raw materials. That's the dictionary stuff, right? It's getting it done, folks. We get out there, we do all this sexy marketing, all this branding, colors, websites, all this other stuff. It creates a bunch of leads. We go out on a bunch of estimates. We sell a bunch of stuff. Then what? Because all that other stuff costs us money. We haven't exchanged any money with the client yet. This is the process of extracting money from clients willfully, giving them an amazing, amazing process, keeping your clients happy, keeping your employees happy, and making some actual money. So I put a lot of emphasis on this. Number 1, because I'm a coding science geek. Number 2, I'm a people pleaser. I love happy clients. I love happy employees. And I know that if you have rock solid systems in your business, you have a better chance of making those people happy. So sales, I love these business cliches. 10X, baby. Sales are for show. Production is for dough. I've heard people say that. I typically don't do a lot of those cliche sort of things. I put it up there jokingly, but honestly, it's a little bit true. Sales is great because what you're seeing here, go back one. So if you see this little thing in the corner, I pulled a Facebook post down. I think this was probably from about a year ago, where it says, I post this with a humble heart and grateful mindset. I started this company, Painters, in March. I just surpassed $1 million in sales coming off my best month in February of all months. I know I will need help and guidance to keep this rolling and appreciate all you in this group. I have learned a ton from your simple suggestions and sometimes sharing stories and ideas. I'm excited to meet you at an event. And so what this person is doing, they posted their sales. They sold $1 million worth of stuff, and these are all exteriors in February in a place where they can't produce them now. And everybody on here universally was like, "Oh, crushing it, bro. This is amazing. This is amazing." This person has $1 million worth of projects to get done, and I hope they have a production process. So I want to be here cheering on an amazing sales process, but you better hope to God you can produce this. That $1 million, it may cost you $1.5 million if you don't have a good production process. So this is not me saying this is a bad thing. Celebrate your sales. This is me saying you better as good a process as this person has for sales, you better have a good enough production process to back this up. Otherwise, you are going to lose money. You're going to lose money on this if you don't have a good production process. Okay. So, production in perspective, we have general management, we have kind of admin and coordination, and then there's the process of getting clients into your company, right? There's marketing, there's sales, and then finally there's production. This is how everything feeds into this sort of thing. Production for me is very simple. Last week, we talked about estimators and salespeople. To me, those people own scope and price. What do we paint? What is the price? That's it. They don't own colors. They don't own schedule. They don't own assigning labor, anything like that. Now, once scope and price is defined, it goes into coordination, then project management, then coordination again, then out. Production owns connecting clients, connecting coatings, and connecting craftspeople, right? You have labor, you have clients that want their house painted, and you have paint. A project manager connects all three of those things in the most profitable, pleasing way that they possibly can, right? So I say this because I get a lot of compliments from people that do interviews at my company that's saying, wow, it's so clear what you do here for each role, you know? And to me, that's kind of sad because this is a standard thing. I would assume, but it turns out that there's not a lot of jobs that give you a clearly defined ownership of something. My project managers, they own connecting the clients, the paint, and our labor. That's what they do, right? And here's where that looks like in our org chart. We have trade partners, we have seasonal employees, we have full-time employees, we have an estimating team, we have an office coordination team in support of project management and estimating, and then we have myself underneath. Now, what you're seeing there is 4 bubbles. We have 2 full-time project managers, and we take on 2 assistant project managers in the summer to just help with the major influx of stuff in Minnesota in the summer. Now, we're going to talk about project management, coordination, and all a bunch of these interchangeable names. I'm going to show you my single source of truth. You can switch out coordination, project setup, office manager, admin, project manager, project court. I mean, all these names can be interchangeable. I want you to understand that somebody gets a project ready, somebody actually gets that house painted, and then somebody cleans it up at the end. In some companies, and in past versions of my company, a project manager has done all this from the time that a job is sold, doing all the things that needs to get it set up, actually painting the house, and then cleaning it up. What I did, because we have the bandwidth, to make my people's lives easier and make them more efficient, streamline their jobs, I actually carved out the middle portion that's actually connecting the clients, the painters, and the paint. And we took out the initial kind of admin-y stuff at the start, and we called it coordination. And then when the job is done, instead of the project manager having to job cost it, ask for a review, pay the sub, and invoice it, we actually send that back to the coordinator now. And it's a super efficient process, right? There's checks, there's balances. If the project manager doesn't do something, the coordinator holds them accountable, and vice versa. And it's a wonderful system. We'll get into more of that. But when I say my coordination, what you're looking at is my single source of truth. There's a blue column here, a red column, and a blue column. Each one of these lines is a project. Each one of these check boxes is a visual progress indicator of how far that project is along, either getting set up, getting completed, or getting finalized by our office staff. So our coordination, they intake all the leads, they schedule all the estimates, and then when a project is sold, they get the project set up with a couple simple things. They make initial contact, they confirm the scope, they get the colors from the client, which is the hardest task. And then they make sure that our contract is signed, which our estimating software now does for us. So our estimating software, which we're going to talk about more about that down the road here, actually does half of our coordinators' duties for them automatically, which is really cool, streamlining this entire process. But blue is coordination. Once a project is set up and ready to go, we will not give a client a spot in the schedule unless they give us colors. Little trick for you there. We're going to talk about scheduling later. Once a client gives us colors, then we can give them to a project manager. Project manager will schedule them, right? Project is done, gets back over to coordinator. They pay the subcontractor if we do that, a trade partner. They invoice the client, they job cost the project, and then send it out for a review. That's how we delineate. And that's where our coordination is right there, kind of in support of the entire leadership team. So I went through a major production process renovation last year before, kind of about starting about a year ago, and then taking about a year previous to that. And before that, the process was great, but it did rely on a lot of grit of human beings, right? And that's not a replicable process. I saw the stress rise in my team. I saw people working extra hours. I saw some burnout. So it was time for a big process renovation. And basically, what we needed to do, we had apps all over the place, right? We had like there's a beautiful concept called single source of truth. You want one place for all the information because it's got to be there in some reasonable fashion. We had like 3 sources of truth, right? So if you needed the colors for a project or the address for a project, those were in 2 different places. And eventually, this wasn't a bad process. It was just like Frankenstein Legoed as my company grew. And it was the same process we were using at $1 million, $1.5 million. We ended up using it at 3 million. And we found out that we just out sophisticated our own system. We just needed something better. So I went back through and did a complete renovation. And I actually got rid of apps during this process. We used a project management app. I got rid of it. We didn't replace it with anything. We made a single source of truth, a dashboard with a visual indicator on there. And it took my project manager's workload from 50 to 60 hours a week down to about 37 or 38 hours a week, which was absolutely amazing. So again, I say this because a role of a manager, as the operations manager, general manager, CEO, I believe that we should do 3 things if we want to keep people a long time and make a lot of money, which is we got to reduce their stress. We got to pay them as much as we can, and we got to find them good coworkers. If we can do those 3 things, we're going to statistically keep a human longer, as long as we possibly can. Now, there's obviously personal things that get in the way of them staying, but if you as a manager want to keep people, you do that. And I say that because renovating these processes, having a good process that doesn't rely on crushing hours, brute strength, tons of job site visits that aren't needed. If you want to make your people's lives easier, you don't want them to martyr themselves and bleed for you just because you can. They're going to get stressed out and leave. And then it's going to take so much of your effort to find another human, retrain them, and keep renovating these processes. So I say that because that's important to me, right? So why is production important? If friction occurs, it's typically here. Estimators and salespeople have a completely different relationship than project managers, right? Everybody's happy to see the old estimators. Ian and Tom, oh my God, everybody loves seeing these guys. We've been waiting for you guys to come here. I can't wait to talk about my project. Oh my God, what about these colors? What about this? What if we add some rooms? Everything's great. You start exchanging money and you start talking about schedule, a client gets real serious then. And then it's time for the project manager to step in and sort of like usher that process through. If there's friction, it's typically when money starts to be exchanged and you have a human in their house. Production, right? It's the most laborious position, right? So there's a lot of tasks. So if you go back to, if you go to my dashboard right here, you're looking at 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 major things that need to get checked off in order for that job to get produced. Now, here's the deal. It's not just 9 steps. One step might take 13 emails, 2 calls, and a site visit to go figure out, right? So you got to understand that taking the variables, taking the irrationality of all of our clients, because they're going to all ask for different things on a different timeline, and they're going to all want to be custom. It's not because they're bad. It's just because they don't know. That's why we have to have a standardized process. So we always use the sort of like pretty gritty analogy of a meat grinder, which is we have all these random cuts of meat, our beautiful clients out there. We need to feed them into this meat grinder so that a consistent, uniform thing comes out of it for our company and our painters to act on, right? And so that's what this production process is, which is if a client wants us to start at 9 o'clock, which we don't, and use their own paint, which we don't, and give them a discount, which we don't, and then do something in a different process, then we don't. So here's the deal. We need to basically level set with them and say, here's the standards, here's what we do. We got to feed that into the meat grinder. Oscar Milan from Facebook, thanks for the comment. Do you require a deposit? If so, what percentage? I do not require a deposit. I never have in 17 years. We take no money down, but we require payment 7 days after we complete your job. I believe this is a concierge level thing. The argument for taking a deposit is to have people have skin in the game. The problem with that is, with me, we do not have almost any clients who say yes to a job, get on the schedule, and then back out at the last minute, right? You'd think it'd be easy if they don't take a deposit. Well, hey, listen, let's get on that painter's schedule. Who cares, right? And honestly, nobody backs out. If that was the problem, I would have people do a deposit. But in 17 years, we've never taken a deposit. We just require payment 7 days after. In fact, it's a selling point, what we do with our estimators. Everybody expects like, okay, what's the percentage of your deposit? You say, hey, client, how about this? Our first core value is trust. If you trust us to paint your house, we trust that you'll pay 7 days after. We don't take a deposit. We trust you. If you're going to let us into your house and let us be here for 1 to 3 weeks, this is a trust relationship. And we assume you're just going to pay us at the end. That's how we do. So, yeah. All right. Oscar did say it does help our cash flow. Absolutely, it does. But I really like offering a client no deposit and then just taking money 7 days after. That helps too. So, my first delegation, people always talk about getting an office admin or all this other stuff. The first position I hired out, minus a painter, was a project manager, and literally 70% of my week cleared up right away between ordering paint, scheduling, checking in on jobs, client communications, all that other stuff. That's what it looked like. So it was a huge. We put so much emphasis on the production process and the client care. 70% of my week cleared up after I hired my first project manager. So do you pay your salesmen then after you finish the job and collect the payment? No, we pay them quarterly based on job costing. A job has to be finished and job costed within that quarter. And then they get a percentage of the revenue of good gross profit jobs. Nick's Painting and Decorating, thank you for the question. I actually have a similar comp plan for my project managers. I'm actually going to show you that at the end of this. So let's keep rocking and rolling here. So like I said, project manager, production manager, client concierge, admin, coordinator, all this other stuff. Just understand that everybody uses different terms. The production process is taking a sold job and getting it done to the point where you're handed an estimate that's sold, and at the end of it, there's a check in your hand that you deposit into the bank. There can be any number of steps in there. I'll show you mine. You might have more, you might have less than me, but either way, there are amount of steps in that. I call that production. I am going to use different words for my company. I use project manager and I use coordinator. Coordinator is an office person for me. And that's how we think about this stuff. You can interchange the names. I just don't want people to get confused here. So man, thanks for everybody watching on IG and Facebook tonight. This is awesome. Keep those questions rolling. I'll stop whenever I see a question that fits into this stuff, and we'll keep going on. You want to talk about oil primer? We'll have to do that another time. So this is basically a simple production process, right? It doesn't have to be anything more than this. You order paint and you schedule a job. There's nothing there, right? That is the minimum viable product of the production process, right? But here's a more sophisticated process. You have to add steps in order to make sure that things don't go wrong. The sophisticated production process, I added these steps. Production process always starts with this. You'll buy some paint, you schedule the client. Oh, let's hope this all works well. Every time there's a friction point, and I saw it over and over again, I added a step. But I don't want to add too many steps. You don't want to make this too laborious, right? So basically, we're going to go through these steps later, but the 7 main steps of production, I would call that, is the setup of the project, getting it into the queue, the initial contact, the project preparation, the kickoff, the in progress sort of stuff, and then the closeout. We'll talk more about that. So what makes a perfect project? So we need material budgets, right? My project managers, remember, they're in charge of 3 things: clients, craftspeople, coatings. In coatings, they have a budget. They They own the entire material budget of my company. I can negotiate prices, I can spec the coatings, I can make the SOPs, but my two project managers are the one who actually order the paint. And they are responsible for bringing that budget below 15%. 15% is the industry benchmark. We put ours somewhere between 11 and 12% for the company. And my two project managers rock it out. They are misers with paint. They're very wise with paint. Labor budgets, right? So we got to keep labor to 40% or under so that we can pay ourselves or pay our people well, have enough money for overhead, and then stay in business, right? So I'm going to show you how we actually come up with a labor budget. I'm going to actually show you how we um, communicate that to painters, because gross profit is not an accurate way, because gross profit is a reactive sort of thing. When the project is done, you need something to give your painters prior, and we give them hourly budgets. And I'll show you how to do that. I'll actually show you the tab on my dashboard where I use to calculate that automatically for my people. The quality control, the standards of this company have to be applied. We have 17 national awards for quality. Our project managers are out there making sure that gets maintained. And then client care and communication. Honestly, this is one of the things that all of us painting companies, well, we're actually pretty good at this. I'm going to point the finger at the industry right now. Painting companies are typically horrible at communication, right? Well, I'm busy painting. I'll talk to you when you get home. That's not how it works, man. People are used to the social media age, emails, all this stuff all the time. And so you need to communicate instantly. All right, we got some questions coming in here. Oh, Oscar Milan, does your PM deliver materials? No, typically not. Do you use SW delivery? Typically, Sherwin delivers to our shop or to the job site. All of our W-2 employees pick up our paint at the shop. I would say probably 25-30% of our jobs, we still, it's just easier to get it sent to our shop. And if our project manager is going to do a kickoff, they'll take the materials to it. Typically when we kick off a trade partner, materials will go with them. We'll walk through the site. We'll see if the client has any questions and then get rocking and rolling. Trade partners really like that when you're there to like walk them through a job and make sure everything's right. So Oscar, another one, do you allow your PM to do job costing? I do, and I monitor daily. Has helped me concentrate on other things. Yeah, so I used to, and it got to be a lot. So we actually moved it to our office coordinator. We got this super high speed young guy named Jack in college. He works remotely. He does coordination for a $3 million company up at Business College in northern Minnesota. And I don't know, probably takes him half hour, 45 minutes a week to do, I don't know, 8 to 12 jobs, job costing every week. We got it down to science, as you can imagine. Everything is beautiful. Jack even gave us feedback this last year about, hey, PM, this is like an 18-year-old college guy. Amazing, amazing young human. He says, hey, project managers, I have an idea. If you guys do this with your paint orders and this, it'll be all in the folder, and then I'll be able to job cost it easier. I gave the project manager some feedback, some training, and we did it. And now it's just like clockwork. Like it's reducing Jack's workload and everything else. And it's just a beautiful thing. So, Joe Elmore, hey, Nick, did you hire a PM before you hired a salesperson? Absolutely. I hired a PM. Then I hired an estimator, and I think we crossed the $2 million mark before I even had an office admin, give or take. And then I doubled. Then I did another PM and then another estimator, things like that. Louis Medina, do you do marketing? I am the marketing manager of my company. Next show will be actually, this is the third step to professionalization production. Next week, I'm going to be at the Expo. Come to the Expo. I dare you. And then the week after that will be step number 4, where we delve into, I believe it's marketing here. Yeah, let's go back to this one just to make sure my schedule's right. Estimating, production, marketing. Oh, this is going to be the most interesting show of 2025. The entire industry has shifted to marketing now being the big problem or the friction point. Boy, do I have some data. I've been going hardcore for 5 years in preparation for something changing in the economy. Something has changed, and I am ready for it, and we're getting some pretty cool results. So I'm gonna share my resources and give you all that stuff for marketing 2 weeks from now. So hang tight, right? So material budget, labor budget, predictable schedule. Schedule is a big thing. Quality control and client care. But there's one thing missing from this list, everybody, that makes great project management. What is it? It's accountability, right? These are managers of humans, right? Managers of clients, managers of painters. We have standards in the company. We have standard operating procedures. We have core values. They must be maintained no matter what. I can only do so much. I need my leadership team to help me with that. And I need my painters to hold clients accountable, all that sort of stuff. So, all right, quick question from IG. When you first started out, 17 or 23 estimates a day, how did you get leads with no budget? We did not do 17 to 23 estimates a day, and we had a budget. I just want to level set with that. Signature Painting of Atlanta. For the longest time, we operated with no well, we operated with, I don't know, I've probably been operating 10 years, 12 years with a marketing budget or spending money on marketing somehow. Um, at some point, our business grows too fast, not too fast, so fast that we outpace our word of mouth repeat and referrals, right? Like if you grow at a very steady pace, 5 to 10% a year, your word of mouth repeat referrals will probably grow with you, right? But if you want to like double your company, add 47, 50% like we were doing in COVID years, your word of mouth repeat and referral can't keep up with that because that's a, like an organic, natural, holistic sort of way to get leads. So I just want to be honest with you that right now our estimators do on average, we want them to do about 15 estimates a week, give or take, if you take an entire year on average. We have a marketing budget. Last year, I spent 6.7% of all my revenue on marketing. We did about 3 million. So that'll give you an indication of what that costs. I'm thinking somewhere between 18 and 35% of all of our leads, depending on the quarter, came from word of mouth, repeat, referral that we didn't buy. Those are free leads, give or take. So if that gives you any indication, that's how we do it. Nick's Painting and Decorating. Is your goal 50% gross then? Roughly 40 to 10. I'll be at the expo too. Nice. Yeah, my bonus, a good job in my company is 45% gross profit. No more than 15% material, no more than 40% labor. That leaves you 45% gross profit, 30% for overhead, 15% for net profit then. So yeah, our goal, our estimators and project managers get bonused on a job. They earn a commission when a job is 45% gross profit or higher. Oscar Milan, do you track your PM KPIs to see if the, oh, do I know that's a rhetorical question. You know, I track the KPIs. We have simple, hardcore KPIs. I'll get into a few of them later, but basically an estimator, what we're looking for is how many estimates did you do? What's your SR, your success ratio? What's your average job size? And what's your revenue? What did you sell last week, right? If you look at all those numbers, that will give you a perfect indication of how well that person's doing. If you track that over time, which in the last show, I gave you my sales tracker, which tracks all this stuff, you will know if they're doing the right thing. I do the same thing with project managers. We have a weekly goal. There is a number. And this is a cool thing. I give them a weekly goal, 52 goals this year based on historic production. If we want to do 3 million, it's not as simple as 3 million divided by 52 weeks. There's our weekly goal because you know we're not producing in the third week of December like we produced the second week of July, right? That's just not a thing. So with data and reason and logic and trying to be a good manager, I take 5 to 6 years of historical revenue production. In week 36 of every year, what percentage of the revenue do we produce? And what you'll find is some really cool things. Like in the winter, we'll produce anywhere between 3 and 8% of our revenue per week. In our in the summer, we can produce as much as 10 to 14% of our revenue per week in the summer. And you can get accurate goals based on all that stuff, which is super cool. Oh yeah, we track this all with tracker and one-on-one meetings. Oscar, if you email me, nick@nickslavic.com, and ask for my tracker, I will send you the tracker. It tracks the estimator and the project manager KPIs, things like that. I also like to track those in one-on-one meetings privately as well too. And we will get into that in another step later on. We got to keep this sucker rolling though. So remember, production process. We're connecting. We got to go back a little bit. I did too many clicks. Holy mama, I jumped way ahead here. Okay. Nope. Sorry, folks. I got click happy here. Let's go back to what we're doing. All right, the production process. So here's basically what we do. Project setup, queue, initial contact, project prep, kickoff, in progress work, and then close out. Remember, project managers connect clients, craftspeople, and coatings. Right? You do not want processes and systems for processes and systems sake. Don't add a bunch of crappy apps just because you like messing with Zapier. Don't add a bunch of steps just because you feel like it. Your job should be to reduce the stress, which means reduce the amount of steps it takes to do a profitable project. Don't do the apps. Simpler is always better. So think about some engineering stuff. I worked for an engineer many, many years ago, and he said something profound and simple and awesome, which is, Nick, everybody thinks that an engineer comes up with some Rube Goldberg thing, some very complicated sort of like thing. And that with our brains and our education, that an engineer, the more complicated, the better. Honestly, an engineer's purpose in life is to simplify every single thing on the planet to its simplest form. Think about a roundabout versus a stoplight. A stoplight has all this metal stuff, electrical stuff. It has to be timed right. Or you could have a concrete circle with no electrical stuff, no moving parts. Our town converted all to roundabouts here, and I love those things. It's a concrete circle. You don't even stop. It's better than a stoplight. There's no mechanical stuff. There's no electricity. It doesn't cost anything minus the construction, and you move on. That's better. We actually took out a stoplight in my town to put in a roundabout. Simpler is always better, right? So now, the basis of what we do is apps, and we have some connections and things like this. There's a repository for everything we do, the Google Drive. There is a visual progress indicator. This is my dashboard, my single source of truth. That's a G sheet, right? And I'm going to share that with you at the end of this. And then communication is the key. Internally, we use Slack for everything we do. We'll send 100,000 messages internally in our company every year. And if you put that on a group text, you're a horrible person. That's way too many dings for humans every day. So we use Slack so that we can organize our communication in an app away from people's text messages and phone calls so that they can have some work-life balance, right? So here's our queue, folks. This is one project manager. I think this is project manager Mike. This is up to the day sort of data here. What you're seeing is one of our estimates right here. Each one of these lines is one of these estimates right here. And this indication, these check boxes, will actually show you how far along that job is to being done and set up and all that other good stuff. So right now we have the upper queue here, which is our interior jobs, and the orange and yellow queue down here is our exteriors we've been accumulating. And we can just see right now what kind of early spring we're going to have. I think we got 250,000 already sold on the books, ready to go. That's most of that's just carryover from last year. And we're steady selling work already getting into this year. There's also a way that you can do a simple math problem to figure out how far out you are. So common question from a client is, well, listen, thanks for putting me in your queue of to-do jobs, but how far out are we? And you may be looking at all these jobs. You may be looking at all this and saying, what the hell? How do we even figure that out? Well, if you do some job costing, you do some basic math, you can figure out, the revenue of these jobs, right? You know your average production rate of your company. You can divide the revenue by your average production rate, and that'll tell you how many hours each job is going to use. You can write down the hours here. You can see in here, this is a queue I snapped a couple of years ago, but we had 355K there. Based on that, based on the humans we had, there's 5,000, almost 5,500 hours of work there. At that point, we were 6.9 weeks out or 1.7 months out. So this is probably a summer queue, give or take. But we could tell a client, like you can see the visual indicators on the side here, 1 week, 2 week, 3 week, 4 weeks. Based on the hours, we can look down here and we say, okay, Mrs. Smith, you're number 9 in the wall queue. We're probably about 3 to 4 weeks out. Historically, that's how it is. But remember, there's a lot of variables, and setting proper expectations is just that. So next one, initial contact. So we want to verify the scope, right? We have a series of stock emails. There's about 13 emails this company uses, and it's standardized process. We don't want to be impersonal, but we also want to have consistent communication so that our clients get the same sort of experience every time they do a project with us. So we verify the scope on various forms in our Google estimates. We highlight what's actually going to get done in purple. So you can see that master bathroom and walk-in closet are not going to be done. They're not highlighted. And then the total will reflect that down below. But this, a client will verify and say, yes, that is actually what we're painting. And we do that via a series of stock emails, right? There's many things you can do. We use Paint Scout, the estimating software now, and that automatically has them sign our contract. In doing that, they verify the scope as well too, which is really cool. But in the past, for years and years, we use many apps, Sign Now being one of them, where you can digitize your contract and you can see here, just like how you sign stuff at a bank where you click and you write your initials and things like that via email and stuff. You can do that for your company too. And there's many apps. Most of them are basically free. You just got to use it. You can send the client a link. They can sign from their mobile phone. It's a super cool thing. And it removes a friction point for your clients as well too. All right. So project prep, the tentative schedule. So here's our color coded schedule. Here's all our crews color coded. And then basically what we do is we put a job on here and we put it in purple, right? So I'll show you a updated version of this. Yep. So here we go. Color coded crews. We can see as we go out, booked out, we're booking into late February. Purple there, black there. And that tells you the purple jobs are tentative. The black jobs are hard schedule. We're confirmed, ready to go unless something changes, right? Jump sheets and work orders. So jump sheets are things that we created in my company to help help our painters out with the budget. It's basically like in addition to the project plan. Paint Scout now spits out our work orders. We used to do these all manually on G Sheet. Not a bad system. It's a great thing. We'll send you a template if you want, but we have switched over to Paint Scout. That'll take an Paint Scout estimate and automatically flip it over to a work order as well too. We have to do a little manipulation because we want colors. As you can see, the purple in here are the colors that we added. And this is something our painters actually use in Slack, which is we have upstairs bathroom, we have downstairs bathroom, 2 bathrooms, walls, shiplap wall, vanity, vanity trim, and then we have the walls. And there's a color for each one. And there's notes as well too, which is really cool. So this is the instruction manual. This is the work order that our painters get to do this. Whether you're a trade partner or a W-2 employee, you see the exact same thing. The jump sheet is a way for them to understand how many hours they're allotted for this job if they want this to be raise eligible. So we have the days of the week here. We have the painter. This one happens to be one of our master craftspeople, Tate. This is a project with 24.6 total hours. There is 23.3 hours on site. There's 1.3 hours allotted for the shop. So our G sheet right here, you plug in the budget and it'll automatically separate out. If there's doors and drawers and stuff that we have to do in the shop, it'll separate those out for you on there. It's pretty cool. And it tells the painter how many hours the job is, which really cool. Is part of my morning process every morning at 7 as I sit down with my project managers. We go over every time punch in the company and we allocate those hours to every job correctly. So we'll get in here and we'll say on 3 February 25, this is actually for an upcoming job, how many hours did Tate use? And we'll look at his time punch. It'll say 10.02 because he's very consistent. And if he did not put 10.02 in here, we'll put 10.02 in there for him. Now, daily, we have accurate job costing numbers. Why? Because everybody's pay is dependent on it. And if you wait 2 to 3 weeks to do this, you're not going to remember what happened the last day. So very important. We have these little microsystems all the time that help us out with this. Paint orders. So we have a proprietary paint order system. It's not anything too fancy, but we take G sheets, we fill them out, and we send them to our paint distributors, mainly Sherwin-Williams, and then they send a truck to our shop with all the stuff. We worked out a system with them because we buy so much paint. It works well. They like getting email orders and sending trucks. We don't like going into the stores. It's a beautiful relationship. So then we hard schedule. So after the paint order is done, now we know for sure we got the paint, we scheduled the crew. Now we just lock in that schedule and then we put it out to our people. Right? And then project kickoff. So with subcontractors, trade partners, we typically kick off every single job. With our W-2 painters, we train them specifically so that we don't have to. So typically our W-2 painters will kick off every single job by themselves. We pay them more because of it. We train them more because of it. And they are very special people. They do amazing work out there because of that. In progress work, we do some check-ins. Every day at 8 a.m., our crews send a project plan via Slack. Here's 26 hours on this job. How are we going to use it to get it 10% under? They'll then give us an update at 3 p.m. If we do need to check in with the client, we'll sometimes go to the house. If they have a question, we'll try to handle it via email, but we always check in with every crew at least multiple times a day to make sure the projects are going well, give or take. And we just want to make sure that, we are known for our care of the clients and our high professional, high velocity communication. And we just want to keep that up through the project. So, all right, folks. Hey, at this point, the famous ZK is watching on Instagram. Hey, buddy. We'll see you at the expo next week. Also, everybody, right now, take a point. We got a whole bunch of people watching. Share this to your story. Tag somebody in this. Share this to your feed. Put this in the Painter Facebook's group. Just start sharing. It doesn't cost you anything, folks, and it's the greatest thing you can do for me to get this thing out here. Daniel Armstrong, my friend from the Dakotas here. Do your PMs kick off all sub jobs? 90% of sub jobs, yes. It's kind of a standard operating procedure. Yep. We almost kick off no W-2 jobs. We kick off almost every sub job. If for no other reason, the one interesting thing about job kickoffs is that every time that I go to train somebody on a kickoff, I go there to kick off a job and there's either a W-2 or a sub there. The client has 3 questions. And you think, if I wasn't here, would you have asked those? If there wasn't a project manager, would you have asked the painter? Or if you asked the painter, would it have got translated to me? So I want to have constant present on a job site, but we also have jobs to do. So we just have to be strategic. And we found that we do a whole bunch of extra training. We hire special people. We train special people in-house to kick these jobs off themselves, close out the jobs themselves. Amazing client care. But also we understand our trade partners probably aren't as good as our trade partners are not as good as our in-person in-house people. It's not because they're bad people, just because they have their own businesses and I don't train them to do that stuff. So we have a project manager go there and assist them. It's a beautiful system. They don't need a lot of help, but it is that sort of like a reassurance on day one. They want to do things right, and we'll show them what actually needs to be painted, what colors, all that good stuff here. So, yep. All right, daily updates on Slack. This is one of the things we do special. 8 a.m. Project plans, 3 p.m. updates. You can see this is the template that all our painters use every day. We get 2 updates from the field at least here. It's absolutely awesome. It's a beautiful, beautiful, beautiful thing. Let's go to the next one. Change orders, in process projects. That's basically what we have here. This is a legal one that we would use for new construction or a remodel. But honestly, if a client says add a room, we send the estimate over, they re-sign it in Paint Scout, and we just add it to the scope and keep moving. We don't do such a crazy process of change orders unless it's like new construction and contractors, because they tend to get a little legal and arbitration-y once in a while, or historically they have. So we just want to be a good trade partner to them. And get that going. Project closeout. We don't need to close out almost any project, if we're being honest. Our W-2s do an amazing job. Again, we find special people. We give them lots of training, give them lots of support, pay them extra, and they're awesome humans, and they do a great job. Once in a while, we'll close out a sub job, but honestly, we have such good trade partners, and we have such good relationships with them, and they know our processes. They close out 90% of the job. So it's good people will handle a lot of this stuff. So Nick's Painting and Decorating, thank you so much for all this. He gave a nice summary on Facebook. Let's keep rocking and rolling here. Invoicing. So now we start kicking it back over to the coordination side of this thing, right? So now our office coordinator sends an invoice to the client because our scope is accurate. Our estimators own that. And as the project changes, they add to it, but there is a single source of truth. Whatever that estimate says as far as revenue, what we're going to charge them, that's what we invoice for. And that's what we send to them, right? Then my office coordinator does job costing. Beautiful system. Again, look forward to that template coming up a couple shows from now, give or take. I have an entire show on the financials and job costing, and it's my favorite show of the year. It's super nerdy. It's been an hour and 45 minutes in the past. People love that show, but job costing is like my jam. Almost nobody does it, and it's the easiest, coolest thing you can do to actually run a real business. So we'll get to that later. So setting up the win. Number one, you got to figure out your capacity, right? It is one of the harder things to do, unless you've done it for a long time, to get marketing, sales, production, and painters all in stasis, right? Typically, it's like we have way too many jobs and not enough painters. We have way too many painters, not enough jobs. And you're constantly in this battle of like back and forth. So just like using some industry benchmarks, writing down your org chart, writing down what a painter can produce per year. This right here, if you add up an average charge rate times how many hours people work in the year, you can make an assumption of what your company can produce. And when I set my goals for the year, I look at my trade partners capacity. I look at my W-2s, the seasonals. I look at my full-timers, And that you add up those bubbles. Each of those bubbles has a potential revenue production for the year. Add those bubbles up. Now you can match marketing and sales. You can add more painters to increase the number of those bubbles. You might have to add production or estimating, all that good stuff. Let me take a drink real quick. I got a little scratch in the throat here. All right. Daniel Armstrong, who handles change orders, PMs or sales? If it deals with scope and price, it is estimators. So if somebody wants to add a room, who deals with scope and price? That's an estimator. Project managers only deal with clients, labor, and paint, right? So pretty simple. Oscar, do you update the client daily on the process of their project? Absolutely not. I actually deleted that slide from here. I hadn't. It's something that I don't even think about anymore. So I just deleted it from the master's class, give or take. We create a group text with our PM client and I. Can Slack be used to communicate? I'd be careful with that. You'd have to invite a whole bunch of clients into a private Slack thing. It can get a little messy. Honestly, here's what I do. I let the clients dictate what they need, right? Our processes are pretty good. If we give a client a start date and an end date and then answer their questions in between, I don't go looking for a fight, if I'm being honest. Some clients don't want to be bothered. There are clients, which we know, who want 3 updates a day. And honestly, they'll let you know. And then we respond to that. So we don't go looking for that fight, though. LaCroix, that's right, baby. And Zach Kenny, looking at you, buddy. This is a key lime, fancy pants, not just the lime, the key lime, right? It's not limoncello, not that fancy, but it is the key lime. It's got a little extra in there. So absolutely. You won't drink a C4. I enjoy my health and my internal organs, so I will not be drinking a C4, Daniel. I know you drink about 15 of those dang things a day. At least you did at the retreat. So God bless you, and I hope you have a long, fruitful life. I don't. You might have to moderate the C4 in order to make that happen, though. So with love, Daniel, with love. So the right person, the right seat. Here is my personality. Oh man, I was about to say, here's my personality disorder. You can tell what's on my mind. Here's my personality, my DISC assessment, right? Pretty high D. That's changed over the years, give or take. It's actually a little more extreme than it is in this one. I've taken about 6 of these. A good PM, though, you want a little bit of drive or not really. I haven't found a pattern in there, but you want somebody who likes a process. You want somebody who then will also do a little bit of customization on the margins, right? Like you'll react to that one client who wants 3 updates a day and you'll leave that client alone who doesn't want updates, things like that. So it's hard. You don't want a true rigid engineer because they're going to be dealing with a lot of like random variables, irrational people, odd requests. So you don't want somebody that flusters them. In this personality, the DISC, the 4 things, the DISC, it's interesting, but it's not a be all end all. It's not going to solve your problem. I used to hire people. I did an experiment for about a year or 2 where I hired people based on their DISC assessment. And honestly, I did worse than when I just used a little bit of science and a little bit of hunch after that. Because the DISC profile and the DISC assessment is not a perfect indicator of who these people are because their personal lives, if there's a little bit of chaos or under stress, or they have a life change going on, will completely change their DISC profile and it won't show up on there. So you really want to look at developed skills and motivators. And really what makes a good PM, honestly, is somebody who loves clearing out the email inbox. I have 2 PMs right now who literally they'll check in to their emails every night and on the weekend. They show up Monday morning and there's 3 emails and in the first 15 minutes, they're gone. I mean, it's just like remarkable. And to me, that is a true sign. It's hard to assess. It's hard to ask interview questions about that, but you know dang well what that person is. If they do that high velocity email, if they run towards a client question, boy, that is about honestly, that's probably the number one trait that if you look at all the PMs I've ever hired, all the PMs that I've looked up to in the industry, that's really really good. So, Ryan Hackey, gut instinct goes a long way. It does, but you got to sprinkle in some science and some data in there as well, as much as you can to try to help, or at least look for pattern recognition, right? Oscar Milan, how does that PM perform with a low D? That PM, particularly there, does not work for me anymore. They had one of the highest energy drives ever out there. Low D doesn't mean they're lackadaisical. It doesn't mean that they're not a self-starter. And not doesn't mean that they're not accountable. That was actually one of the hardest working people I've ever employed. And that person actually burned themselves out because of it. So yeah, it's interesting how this all interacts. To me, disc profiles are an interesting way of talking about the right person, but they're not the end all and be all. And in fact, I stopped using them for the company for the most part because they ended up being a novelty. They told you who that person was, and it was sort of like a parlor trick where you're like, oh, yeah, I'm kind of like that. But it wasn't an indication if they were going to be ever good at this. There would be traits that wouldn't show up on there. So, interesting thing to talk about, but not the end all be all, right? So, humans holding other humans accountable is the key to all this. So, how do we come up with a PM job description? How do we come up with a pay scale? It's not just on its own, right? What we do is we start at the business, the goals of the business. We then think about the next thing here, which is creating a job that will fulfill some of the goals of the business. We create a job ad and a comp plan that will incentivize that person to hit the goals of the business. And then we have a micro accountability method in order to get that stuff done. So for me, it's one-on-one meetings and it's that daily morning routine where we go through job costing and all this other stuff. It's just micro stuff all the time. The longer I do this, the less and less huge sit down goal setting and review meetings I do. Honestly, it's kind of done daily and weekly and monthly throughout the year in a micro dose. So you never need to sit down and have a big performance review. So that makes everybody nervous, right? Super nervous. And people don't like that sort of thing. So, cutting edge paint pros and remodeling. When did you decide to start a painting company? I started when I was 10 with a family business. I went to the Army. I went to college. I graduated. The old man, I went to rejoin the family business. Dad had no place for me. And I started my business in 2007 because of that. So, yeah. Another story for another time. Dog whistled to the right person. So now we got to find the right person, right? So job ads specifically for this, I will send you a job description later on in the building a team, the LMA sort of thing. With this one, I'll send you production resources. I'll send you job description, pay scale in another Mastering the Basics episode. But basically, you want to back up the goals of the business. You want to figure out what that job is that will actually get that done. And then you want to go take it to market, make a job ad, take it out there to the person. So here's some deliverables for my project managers. This is like the gritty stuff that you never hear from anybody else, but is actually like, the true data coming from 17 years of doing business. So the deliverables, at a minimum, I need a project manager produce 1 million. And honestly, they need to produce about 1.5. I give them about a 12-month grace period to go from 1 to 1.5, give or take. 75% of projects or revenue have to hit 45% gross profit. There's a bonus system. I give my people about 2% of all good gross profit revenue. So at the end of a quarter, we probably have about 120 jobs, give or take 150 at the most. And we'll separate them between jobs that did not hit 45% gross profit. They don't get any bonus on those. On jobs that did hit 45% or higher, you add up all the revenue from that times 2%, and that is their bonus for the quarter. On the high end, we're probably looking at $10,000 to $12,000 per quarter. Per estimator, per project manager. For somebody who's starting out, anywhere between $3,000 and $8,000 per quarter, give or take bonus based on that. But it's pure performance driven. And about 40 to 50% of their pay comes from that bonus structure. So it's a pretty cool thing. I'll show you another slide here too. We want to minimize callbacks. I like to see callbacks at less than 5%. No more than 40 hours per week. That's a big thing for me, which is I don't want these people working more than 40 hours. And it's my job as their manager to make sure they don't do that. One site visit per day. I tell them, listen, you can go to multiple site visits that you want, but also you got client communication and humans to support. If you spend all day doing site visits and don't answer any painter questions, you're a bad project manager. So you got to be nice and consistent. One job site visit a day is 220 job site visits a year. That's a lot, right? And materials, we want it under 12%. Nick's Painting and Decorating. Does your PM work more than 40 hours a week? Also, I've seen you implement Fridays off. We've been doing that for about 6 years, 6 or 7 years, I bet now. Probably 6 years. My people work 40 hours over the course of 4 days. My leadership team and even I, as far as the painting company goes, have office hours 7 to 5, Monday through Thursday, give or take. Fridays, I do all my other business stuff, all the entrepreneur fun days. I call my entrepreneur snow days. I work a lot. But I got my work hours down less than 50 hours a week now, and I run 3 businesses. I have an influencing business, and I'm the chair of a 140-year-old nonprofit, and I'm also part of my own community. I would argue 50 hours a week is a pretty low commitment for all that stuff. I just try to be as effective as I can. So yeah, my project managers, I try to keep them to under 40 hours a week. We actually take real vacations. The phones and the tablets and everything get shut off, put in the office. These people take real vacations and they come back. Yeah, they get a couple of emails, but we've covered down when they're gone. It's not the end of the world. There's no paying emergencies. They have an out of office reply and it works great. So let's see. Let's see here. Oscar Milan. Why PM commission based on revenue and not GP? It is the revenue on GP, right? I would never do it based on revenue alone. It needs to be hitting the goals of the business. I want them incentivized by doing profitable jobs. That is the gross profit. They can only control the gross profit. They do not control overhead. So bonusing them on the net profit of the company would not be a good boss thing to do, because if I go buy a Ford Super Duty, that is erase the profit and then they will not get bonused. So they can control material and labor. So they get bonused on the gross profit of jobs. They just get, bonused on the revenue from the good gross profit jobs. I want to make that very clear. Energy allocation. This has changed a lot over the years. Typically, when I think about how I create this job, the project prep, like getting a job actually on the schedule, is about 50% of the work. Our clients have a lot of questions. They need a lot of things, lots of variables in there. And we put a ton of time into this process. It takes a long time. From the time a client says yes to an estimate to the time we paint their house, I don't know, typically 1 to 5 weeks. And it ain't because it takes us 1 to 5 weeks. Clients just need a lot of time. It's easy to say yes to an estimate. When it comes down to it, when we actually say, great, here you go, we need your colors and we'll give you a spot on the schedule, then they start taking 2, 3, 4 weeks to get us colors. So about half our project manager's time is just they're handed a pile of sold work and they need to get it onto the estimate or get it onto the schedule and start it. That's about half their job, if I'm being honest. The in progress is about 40%, answering questions, daily kind of stuff. And project closeout, honestly, it's pretty minimal. We have super tight procedures. We have awesome humans, and they close these things out just beautifully, right? And here is an example of the comp plan. I will send you a copy of this too. You want these incentives aligned to goals. This varies based on all the humans and people who have been in my company over the years. But basically what you do is you start off with a base of about $60,000 a year, and you get somewhere between 2 and 2.5% bonus on all the revenue. That's good GP. You have health insurance, you have retirement, you have PTO, you have a 4-day work week, you have a 30-minute paid lunch every day that you work. And in fact, last year, I gave my leadership team 4 weeks of PTO because we took the last 2 weeks of the year off and I blessed it for them. So, and there's a whole bunch of benefits. They get a company vehicle, they get all the tech, all the fuel, insurance, maintenance, cell phone, iPhone is all paid for, all that good stuff. So really what you're looking at here is we're skirting around 90 to 110, 90 to $120,000 total pay and comp once people get in here for about a year and get going here. And now, another example of something that a good manager would do, I would consider this, is a conflict resolution decision tree, right? So I think one of the most important parts of being a good manager is always going to bat for your clients and always being like the reliever in left field, right? So every time that a client has a little bit of friction, 1.1% of our clients get angry at us for something. They're not as pleased as they could be, right? And we have a conflict resolution decision tree to fix that. Now, every time a client has a question and gets a little spicy, I do not want my team kicking it to me. They're project managers. They need to manage this sort of thing, right? But at some point, they can get super stressed out and distraught if a client's being irrational or just not being fair to the process. They sign a contract, we set expectations properly. If they keep pushing back against that, eventually they have to make 2 attempts through there, but eventually it comes to me and I am there, right? So there could be 2 ways that a client creates conflict. There could be a technical question, right? They could say, hey, I don't really like this finish, right? And then we can address that on a technical level. But then there's a core value question. There's something about, I don't trust you. They typically don't come out and say it, but sometimes clients will feel like they're being taken advantage of despite all our efforts to not make them feel that way. And at that point, if our core values are questioned, my team will kick it to me and the guy with the name on the company will show up. And it's a really interesting sort of interaction because I know this project. I've been following it along the whole time. I have daily interaction with all the crews. I know the client's face. I know the client's house. I know the specs of the colors, the coatings, and everything else. And a client, when it gets to this point, 1.1% of our clients every year will do this. They'll be like, finally, I get to talk to somebody who actually knows what they're doing around here. Your name's on the company. Finally, a good, honest person we can just level set. Of like, I've been supporting my team the entire time. Actually, all those decisions that they made that brought us to this, I support them on it. I don't say this, but it's just one of those things when you get a client who's just not going to be made happy. I sit there and honestly, what I do is I tell my PM, like, you can get on the phone call with me, but I got you from here. I'm going to solve this for you. And we have a decision tree that I go on, which is I listen, I ask a bunch of questions. I typically ask them what would make this right for them. And typically they ask for something not crazy and we do it. If they're completely unhinged, then I say, well, here's the deal. This is our process. This is what our people did. I'm standing by them. At some point, I do have to stand up and say, that's just not fair, or what you're saying is wrong. And if my people are 100% right, which I have an easy time standing behind them, and that client pushes back, and we'll say, well, that's fine. The job stands, the invoice stands. Typically, we're much more reasonable. We'll be like, listen, if you really feel you're being disadvantaged, we don't have to charge you for it. We can go find somebody else to do it as well too. And people are a little more reasonable than that. So I don't want to make this come off as this is a thing we do very often, but for the couple times a year, six to seven times a year, each of my project managers are going to have to deal with somebody who's pretty angry. And it's typically not because of us, which is kind of interesting. And if you don't go to bat for them, they're going to get stressed out and leave. And it just bugs them out. So, as a good manager of your people, as a good company owner, I do believe you need to go to bat for your people. And honestly, I've stood up and I've told some of my people, listen, what you did there, you could have done that a lot better. And I have to tell the client that, right? I'm going to say, estimator Bill, he honestly didn't define that scope very well. What I'm not going to tell you is Bill's a bad dude. He meant well. He meant to do this job well. I will personally take ownership and apologize to you that it wasn't done better. Our process wasn't followed, but Bill's a good guy. He meant well. He tried to take care of you. It is an honest mistake. I just want to come to a resolution. I'm the owner of the company. What can I do to make this right for you? And that's how we do it right there. So, next, painting and decorating. I've noticed some analogies to the EOS process, LMA. Do you fully implement EOS? Not really. It got me off the ground. We do a lot of the stuff. You'll find threads in there, but we're probably a 50% compliant. And then we've kind of gone off our own way with other coaching systems and stuff like that. One PTO is PTO 1 hour paid for 40 hours work, 3% 401k, 50% insurance premium. No, for a project manager, I'm going to give you a very specific thing. I pay for all of their premium for health insurance. I give them a 3% simple match and a account they own. And I give them 80 hours of PTO on January 1st. You can use it however the hell you like over the course of a year. It's all yours. That's how we do it. And our dashboard. So this is the last thing. And then we have questions. So I'm going to walk you guys through our dashboard. This is something that I absolutely love. This is my single source of truth. I'm going to walk you through my tabs here. Looking at other people's spreadsheet isn't always that helpful, but here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to send you guys a blank template of this and you can modify it for however you like. So this is our setup queue. This is coordinator Jack's setup queue. When a job gets sold, he adds it to here and he is responsible for this right here. Once all 4 boxes are checked, he then kicks it off to a project manager. And you can see here's Jack's stuff that he set up. This is the project manager. The project manager takes it from here and then starts checking off the boxes as we go here. This is Kelly's. This is Mike's. And basically what they have to do is move the folder into our drive so a painter can access it. You got to do a jump sheet and a work order. You got to create a Slack channel. You send it to a sub and a sub accepted. This is sorry, I don't want to move that column. If we do a trade partner, we'll use these 2 boxes. If not, we erase them. We put a tentative date on the drive. We do a confirmation email. We get them on the schedule and then we do a paint order and that's it. Then we produce the project. When the project is done, we kick it back over. We pay the subcontractor. We invoice the project. We do job costing and we send out for a review. This is a total track. When a project is done, Jack will then kick it over to the completed tab. He will remove it from the queue. So now it's not on there anymore. It goes to completed. And then here is our schedule. So we have our client contract, trade partners, subcontractors. We have our W-2 employees. We have all of the week schedule here. We have goals for our project managers spelled out there at the bottom. Then we have our tracker. So this is a thing that I sent you guys last week. Project managers, estimators, I have weekly goals here. This will give us, for estimators, our year-to-date goal, year-to-date actual, weekly goal, actual week goal, percentage of goal, average job size, success ratio. And then for project managers, year-to-date goal, year-to-date actual, weekly goal, weekly actual, and then percentage of goal. That's basically what we do. And we track this every week to look for trends. And they know exactly in a quarter what they have to produce based on those weekly numbers right there, which is pretty cool. We have all of our job costing. Hey, folks, the guy who preaches job costing does this. It gets done every Tuesday, typically, and then I review it before Friday, the end of the week. So I have my process of going through and checking material, checking labor, make sure everything is good on a week-by-week basis so that my people's pay and comp is all set. I love doing this stuff. And coordinator Jack does all this, which is really cool. Now, here's my budget tab, which is pretty cool. So we type in, see these yellow boxes here. This is how we figure out how many hours a project should take. And we have this on a tab down here because this is a reusable template. What they do is when a project manager has a 23,465, it's a big old trim job, right? Let's say we got passage doors. We got 10 passage doors and we'll call it a big kitchen. We'll call it 50 doors and drawers there. What this will do is then say, well, here's how much revenue we're going to get. Here's the door count. Here is the total budget. We need to do 284.9 hours, 285 hours, give or take. 24 of that, based on the door count, is going to be our shop budget. And then there's a site budget of 260.8, right? So then what they'll do is they will copy and paste this, copy like that. They'll get into one of our jump sheets for the crew. They'll paste it. And now our crew has something to go off of on that, right? It's a pretty cool system on that. And then when that project manager is done with that, they'll erase the revenue. They'll get rid of the door count. It's ready for the next job, for the next project manager. We have a material sniff test, right? So what we have here is, let's get this a little bigger here. So revenue, let's do 23,463. And let's say that we have some Scuffex. We'll do 20 gallons of Scuffex. We'll do 20 gallons of cover stain. We'll do 35 gallons of duration mat. Oh, look at that. That puts us at 15%, which is 15% materials for a $23,000 job, give or take. When they're trying to figure out how much paint to use, they use this as a thought experiment for why of 15%. Let's see, you know what? Maybe I can get, instead of 35, because a bunch of those rooms are one color, I bet you we can go 32. And with the cover stain, I tell you what, let's start with 16 gallons and I'll order more if they want. Oh, that puts me at 14. I just saved a point on this job, right? That's how my project managers use this as like a material sniff test, give or take. We have a coatings quick reference guide as well too. So we have, here is our substrate. Here's our basic SOP. Here is interior, standard shine, and the sheen or the shine, the coating that we use, the supplier that we get it from, and a visual image. If I'm being honest, this is for training people. Once in a while, there'll be like a weird industrial product that we got to look up on here, but this is really for training, and then they don't use it all that often, right? Now, we also have a coatings and quantity guide. So let's just say we have one of our houses. It's a large house. We do unit pricing on our exteriors here. We have, let's see, typically there's about 3,000 square feet. A large house, either duration or woodscapes, will typically take about 22 gallons, plus or minus. Probably not going to take more than 30, then the house bigger than it. Probably not going to take less than 16. This is for them a quick reference guide to figure out, in the world of, because we don't measure houses, we do unit pricing, they can get pretty dang close. And then pretty soon they use, this is like artificial intelligence. This is like Nick AI. I've compiled this over 30 years. We have a lot of data in here. What they use is then human intelligence on top of that to tweak that number. It's not a perfect system. We know that. That's why we use human intelligence on there. And then, of course, we have all our subcontractors and things like that too on there. So, but yeah, this is basically this is our Q, our single source of truth, which is a really good thing. It has completely renovated. We actually got rid of an app and went back to a dashboard like that. And it really did revolutionize what we did. It's an amazing thing. So, Oscar Milan, does Paint Scout do job costing? It does not. Nick AI, I love that. I'm about ready to feed almost 500 episodes of Ask a Painter into ChatGPT and make it come up with the Nick AI so you guys can ask questions and then just get automatic answers. I'm going to program it to say, do some job costing, fool. That's what it's going to say after every question, because you guys know exactly that's what you have to do if you don't already. So, all right, folks, that has been a long episode. I love production more than anything. Thank you guys for watching. Right now, share this to your feed, share this to your story, tag a friend, put it in those painter Facebook groups, and for God's sakes, email me, nick@nickslavic.com. I'm going to send you a blank copy of my dashboard and some other resources for production and coordination. And we're going to get you off the road and running before the big summer stuff kicks. So this is the last Ask a Painter before Expo, guys. I'm going to see all my friends, all my interesting people there next week. The presidential suite is going to be open for a chairman's happy hour at some point. You're going to need a special handshake to get in. We'll get there. But this is going to be really cool, folks. Do not sleep on this expo. I want you to be there. I want you to be there with us. We will likely in the near future never go to a place as cool as this again. This is a once in a lifetime experience. Thank you, IG. Thank you, Facebook. Thank you, LinkedIn. Thank you, YouTube. I appreciate the heck out of you guys. Come to the expo. Have some fun. We'll see you guys next week. You are going to have FOMO watching my social media feed.